I know, exactly. Not to mention, like, they're like, I'm moving to Canada, and I'm like, you think Canada just wants all of our fucking whiners?
Yeah, listen, not only that, but Canada has like ridiculous free speech laws. They have hate speech laws. They can come down on you for a lot of things. They seized up the bank accounts of people that were protesting the truckers.
Oh, that was a fun time.
Truckers, the people that were donating to the truckers, they seized their bank accounts.
It's crazy.
Like, yeah, that's not a good place.
Yeah.
It's not a good place under this administration, at least.
Yeah, where do you go?
They went sideways. Canada was an amazing place 10 years ago. You go to Canada 10 years ago, it was awesome.
So
I was always saying that I love Canada. It's like 20% less douchebags.
Where do you like in Canada?
I love Montreal. Montreal's amazing.
Beautiful city.
I love Toronto. I love Vancouver. I love Canada.
Vancouver's one of the most beautiful
cities. I don't go to
cities.
Canada anymore. But
Ever?
No.
You went to a gig there?
Not while that guy's president. Fuck you.
Yeah,
or
but
whatever he is, prime
these people
minister.
are fans of yours. They want to see you still.
Fuck you. Get rid of that guy. I'll come back. I just don't trust any of it up there.
Yeah.
I just think they're so far into tyranny right now. Like the laws that they're passing, the shit that they're doing, the erosion of people's rights. Like I don't want to support it. I think it's fucking horrible.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people there just want to laugh. I think people need a laugh. You
Oh
know?
yeah, they definitely need a laugh. They're in the middle of a full-blown communist takeover. Yeah, it's a scary spot.
Yeah.
It's scary. But it used to be amazing. I used to say that Canada's 20% less douchebags. Like the people are 20% nicer than most people that you meet in America.
They're polite.
But that's why they get roped into all this shit. That's why they get roped into hate speech laws, because they want to be kind. They want to be good people. And they don't realize like compelled speech has a terrible ending. It always ends in communism because someone has to compel that speech. Who does? The people with guns. And they tell you what to do.
Yeah.
And then you have violence that is enforced to get people to follow a doctrine that they may or may not believe in.
Yeah, I think you just gotta be pro free speech. I mean, for all the awful shit people can say, you still just have to be pro free speech.
That's Elon's take on it, you know, and that's what they're doing with Twitter.
Well, the weird thing about Twitter now is like, for all the shit people will say about Elon, I think like, look at the other social media platforms. Everything gets anything. There's like trigger words. They'll be like, you said the word Nazi. I'm like, yeah, I condemn them in a joke. And they're like, well, it got buried because you said that. And you're like, cool. Well, that feels like some Nazi shit.
Yeah.
I can't use irony. I can't be sarcastic. Yeah. That's the evil of like, I think when they bury you are, it's a different type of censorship, but you are, you are burying certain trigger words that you think might be offensive and hurt ad sales. Oh, cool. Now posting a joke on Instagram is similar to putting together a set for the Tonight Show. It's all fucking, this word's not okay.
Yeah.
This word's not okay.
Yeah.
Twitter's actually the only place left, if you think about it, which is really fucking weird, you know?
It's really weird because Twitter used to be the worst place for that.
Yeah.
Twitter was the place where the FBI literally, like the whole Twitter files when Elon took over.
Right.
And they had Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger and all these guys like
Right, the Rolling
investigate.
Stone guy, yeah.
When they went into it and they were like, oh my God, the government was literally trying to stop legitimate professors at Stanford and people at Harvard and MIT from talking about their area of expertise.
Right.
They were trying to label them as kooks and get them kicked off of Twitter.
Yeah, they do that in Canada,
the whole thing was fucking bananas. And if he didn't
Jordan
buy
Peterson.
People
Twitter,
used to get their accounts suspended a lot
All
on
the
Twitter.
time.
Remember that? Like that was a big thing. But
All
now
the
it's
time.
like it's more like Instagram. TikTok's ridiculous, obviously. I mean, there's that one is like, good luck. Who the fuck knows? But even YouTube has kind of changed a little bit. I mean, YouTube is, everyone's changing, is my thing. But YouTube is like, it's kind of shocking. Like, my issue is like, they keep moving the goalpost in, but there's no guidebook. They're not telling any of us what's not okay. They're just kind of making up the rules as they go along. And to
they
me,
ban
I'm like,
people's accounts. They don't even tell them why.
it's kind of,
Your
to
account
me,
has violated our terms of service, and then that's it. And then you have no recourse.
and you're spending a lot of time and money building up these platforms, and they're like, sorry.
Yep.
Well,
Fuck you.
it's pretty fucked up because, you
Well,
know.
especially now during the election. Excuse me. During the election time now, they're really clamping down on that.
Yeah, I bet.
And there's a lot of people getting shadow banned, allegedly. And then there was a thing that Elon just released where he said that European governments they were saying that they would be willing to give them money to have certain platforms censor certain political speech.
Yeah.
And Elon was the only one that said no. And he talked about it publicly. He said these other groups, these other social media platforms complied. And like, I'm telling you about this.
Yeah.
You need to know.
Crazy.
It's pretty weird because they just keep moving the goalpost in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bad. I see comics now kind of working toward the algorithm, and it is bad for entertainment and for art and stuff like that. And I get annoyed when comics are just like shocking for the sake of being shocking and lazy, but I don't think they should be fucking silenced.
Yeah.
Speaking of people who have been silenced, let's go on to Jordan Peterson, who had a good interview with Danielle Smith the other day, and they make some really good points about just how the liberals aren't even really liberal anymore, the movement of conservatism, on how Pierre Poilievre is just leading the way and crushing things, and they make some really good points about his first 4 years in office and what it could be like. So let's listen in.
I guess I just like the old style of liberal, the ones that actually led with their heart and compassion. I mean, we used to have a liberal party that talked about the single mom and the difficult time that she's having, being able to pay for groceries and take her kids to soccer practice. We used to care. They used to care about the tradesman who's lost his job because of whatever downturn has happened or whatever consolidation has happened because of these additional regulations. They used to care about the average family just trying to make ends meet, and I don't hear them talking that way anymore. That's the thing that so surprises me is where did all of that heart, where did all that compassion go? Those are the things that Pierre Poilievre is talking about right now. I hear Pierre talking more about the plight of regular people and the difficulties that they're having making ends meet. I know that is very much on my mind about how do we counteract all these terrible policies so that people can just afford the basics of life. And I don't know when the Liberals stop caring, but it's so obvious that what you've described is true, that they're not putting people first anymore.
Yeah. Well, it is very interesting to see. Well, Ford has done the same thing in Ontario, that Ford and Poilievre have really become the voice of the working class. And I see, the thing is, you kind of see that with Trump in the US too. And I think it's because we've actually developed the realization on the classic liberal and conservative front that there is no better pathway forward for rectifying the economic misery of the poor than the free market system. And so, to the degree that that's the case, and now I think the case for that is unassailable unless you're literally criminally blind, that it's easy now for the conservatives who used to be the party of big business, let's say, which is kind of what they were when I was a young guy, to be speaking directly to the working class. Is we're going to declutter the system. We're going to get rid of the idiot environmental taxes that do nothing but make your life more difficult and increase pollution. And we're going to serve you. And I think Poilievre has done that very effectively. Now, can you envision, how do you feel about the unity, let's say, of the conservative movement in Canada now? There's a number of conservative premiers who seem to be ideologically on board with your approach. There's Scott Moe and Blaine Higgs, and so at minimum, and I don't know what your relationship is like with Doug Ford. And then we have Poilievre, of course, who's a rising star and is very much likely to be the next prime minister. I mean, so is your view of Canada's future at the moment optimistic fundamentally? And if it's optimistic, what is that optimism tempered by? Let me just add one more preamble to that. See, I'm afraid that what's going to happen is that the Canadian economy is far worse than people think, and that we're going to discover a lot of things under the carpet that were hidden by the Trudeau government. Now, the evidence of that is he has a bloody scandal every week that should be sufficient to bring down his government, like the last scandal we just had about the airlifting of the Sikh people out of Afghanistan. It's one a week. And so we're going to see a lot of things that we don't know about the second Pierre Poilievre is elected, and they're going to be instantly blamed on him by the environmentalists and the Greens. And then he's going to have maybe 4 years to mop up what is one god-awful mess. And so, I could see a scenario where he's in for 4 years. All those Canadians who have to remortgage, which I believe is about 60% of them, are going to do that and lose their houses. And it's going to be like really a rough go for him. And then the Liberals will replace him.
Yeah.
So now, that's a pessimistic view. And I'm not saying that will happen, but man, it isn't obvious to me that I'd like to be in his shoes. So, how are you conceptualizing, let's say, the next 5 years in Canada? And when's your next election?
My next election is October of 2027, so I have a bit of runway. I'd make a point that, and you've touched on it, and you've hit it. I talked to a young analyst who was looking and tracking at Justin Trudeau's declining popularity. And he also was tracking the number of mortgage renewals that are happening each month, and it tracks perfectly. The more people who are having to renew their mortgage and now face the sticker shock of having double the mortgage payment because of their high rates, that then they look around and say, who's caused this?
Yep.
And the obvious answer is the guys who've been in charge for the last 9 years. Who's got a solution for it? And the obvious answer is Pierre Poilievre. And so that's very linked to what it is that they're experiencing. And it's happening in real time and happening very quickly, and it will probably accelerate. I would say that, am I optimistic about conservatism? I would say that the conservatives, this new generation of conservative leader, whether it's Pierre or whether it's my colleagues across the country, we've begun to realize that aspirationally, the blue collar workers and those trades unions are more aligned with our conservative values than they are with the extreme green alignment that we're seeing out of the Liberals, the Green Party, and the Socialists, the New Democrats. If I was a frontline worker, I would say, why in the world would I support any of those parties? Because all they're doing is advocating for job losses. They don't want to see these high-paying resource jobs be successful. They haven't invested in raising the parity of esteem for the skilled trades and professions the way we talk about it in the conservative movement. And part of the reason that we do is that we've seen the pathway that kids were told. Kids were told, well, graduate from high school, go to university and get a bachelor degree. And then after that, get a master's. And then after that, get a PhD. And then you will be the highest paid workers in society, because the more education you have, the more you're going to get paid. And what has happened, in fact? Well, those kids who've gone down that pathway end up with $100,000 or $200,000 worth of student loan debt. And now they're in their late 30s and trying to get out of the workforce, and their degree isn't as valued as much as they were led to believe it was going to be. And now they're trying to get married and get a home, and now the home prices have escalated. And so now they have to put off having kids because they can't afford to have kids, pay a mortgage, and pay off their student loan debt. But there's another way. You can actually encourage kids who are practical and want to do something with their hands and want to do some meaningful work in the resource sector, go out, get dual credit in high school, maybe have a couple of years at a trades program. You start working right away, making 60 to, in some cases, these jobs are $200,000 a year. You become an immediate taxpayer. You pay off your debt. You have the ability to buy a home or build a home, because depending on the profession that you go into, then you can get married, you can have kids, you can buy your house, you can afford your life. It's a different vision. And that's why I think that we understand a lot more about how vitally important those high-paying resource jobs are. It's not just about economy. It's about human flourishment. It's about being able to live the life you want to live. And most of us, we just want to find our life mate partner, be able to get married, be able to have kids, be able to take care of families, take vacations, go camping, and do those kinds of things that when we look back to our own childhood, seem to be getting further and further out of reach. But I think that are linked. That's why I think the approach that Doug Ford has taken, and even in the approach in the United States, where the Republicans realize that the frontline blue-collar workers have way more in common with the conservative side of the spectrum these days than the ideological side that we're seeing in the extreme green movement that is influencing all the progressive parties.
Okay, and then finally we got Jagmeet Singh, who was in Edmonton today talking with some reporters, and this happens all the time where he's got the worst camera crew, the worst media. You can get an old iPhone that takes better video than his cameras do, and at the end his cameras just shut off completely in the middle of him talking, which, who really wants to listen to him talk anyway? But let's get into it.
With that, I'm ready for any questions you might have.
They always give him the worst cameras.
About targeting bad landlords, and I mean, obviously, there's some pretty clear examples of that. But everybody is raising their rent at this point. How would this program, I guess, differentiate between bad landlords and folks who just have to raise their rent?
Well, we can make that assessment pretty clear. I gave the example of Boardwalk REIT. Boardwalk REIT is a large corporation. It has increased their rents massively. So we see reasonable rent increases. That's one thing. But with Boardwalk REIT, we see massive increases. And Edmonton has seen some of the highest increases compared to cities across the country. So we're seeing not just small increases, but some of the highest increases in the country happening here in Edmonton. that's hurting people. So when we see a massive increase, then we turn around and look and see that, well, you know what? That corporation is receiving federal help. I mean, that's just completely wrong. Like, how could it be that the federal government backs up with CMHC insurance the interest or the mortgages of these corporations? They get lower interest rates because of it, and then they exploit the people that live in their apartments. It's like the federal government's helping them exploit them. That's wrong. And so we want to send a very clear message. If you're a bad tenant landlord, you're a bad corporate landlord, you're ripping off your tenants, you're jacking up rents, you're not going to get any federal help anymore. No, it stops there. And we want to make that very clear. We're the only party that's prepared to do that. There's significant levers the federal government has to go after these bad actors. We want to use the tools we have to stop them from ripping you off.
You also talked obviously about rising rents and a little bit of rent control. Rent is primarily a provincial jurisdiction. I know you have obviously how you can target it at the federal level, but how do you push for that here in Alberta when, the province just opted out of the dental program, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I want to be clear that the Conservative government in Alberta is making decisions that hurt people every day. And it's no surprise that they're not willing to stop corporations from ripping out people or landlords from ripping out renters. It's clear that Danielle Smith is not interested in protecting people. She's more interested in helping out her friends. And the fact that I think the first question when it comes to the dental care is, why would Danielle Smith want to take away dental care that's being paid for seniors by the federal government? Why would you want to get that? Why would you want to take that away? Why is that something?
Their cameras are so crap. They just oh man, they have the worst media team. It's hilarious.